Meet the Pixboom Spark, the most affordable high-speed camera we've ever seen. Gunther took a beta unit to India to capture butterflies in slow motion, and the results surprised us. Let's dive into what we learned. Welcome from the CineD studio. It's my pleasure to be here with our friend Gunther, who just took the Pixboom Spark pre-production camera, this high-speed camera, to India. And just to give you guys a little bit of a backstory, we never heard about Pixboom, like much earlier than you guys. And I think they just first showed their preview of their camera at CineGear. And then they actually also had a booth at IBC. Nobody knew the company before, but it was very promising, a high-speed camera at an affordable price, very nice marketing, very beautiful camera design. So everybody got interested. And at IBC, they actually gave us a pre-production unit for a week with us. So you could actually take it to a trip you had previously planned to India to film butterflies.
Yes, exactly true.
But before we get too technical and dive deeper into the Pixboom tech, let's actually look at Gunther's little mini documentary.
Every disposable minute of our lives is gone, invested into bringing that space up. So it's very close to our heart. A lot of times people say, if you're not making money, why do you keep it? And if you're having so much of opposition and it's such easy money to just sell it off, why don't you do it? For her, it's like a kid. It's like a child.
I always say it's my baby.
It's that time of the year again, where I'm out with my dear Indian wildlife friends Vijay, Jayant and Parag from Pune. Despite the ongoing monsoon, we are exploring the Western Ghats in northern Goa to try our luck at macro photography and filmmaking. Jayant has a good friend who is running a butterfly sanctuary with his wife, and this is going to be our place to stay for the next 2 days.
Hi, I'm Yashodan. She's Jyoti.
Hi, good morning.
She runs this place called Mystic Woods. Okay, it's a small butterfly sanctuary that she's created by using plants on which butterflies come to feed and breed. And we try to create a habitat. So welcome.
So the place when we bought, it was just a barren land. In 15 years, we have tried to build up the whole conservatory with multiple plants, species, making a small habitat, a home for the butterflies.
Yeah, we believe that actually the role of butterflies in nature is to repair forests. So we use butterflies as a starting point to create a forest out here. Okay, so whenever there is any clearing in a forest, first the weeds grow. On the weeds, the butterflies will lay eggs. To eat the caterpillars, certain birds come and they bring seeds of shrubs. More caterpillars of different species of butterflies lay eggs on those shrubs. Different set of birds come, they bring seeds of in their droppings, when they come to eat the caterpillars. The trees of larger variety grow, and so on till the highest variety, tallest variety of forest. So any clearing with the help of butterflies and birds, a place becomes a forest again. Okay, there are two types of plants that we have put here. One is what we call as host plants, plants on which butterflies would lay eggs. Every butterfly has got its own species on which it will lay eggs. The caterpillars will eat leaves only of that particular plant. And the second one we have is nectaring plants. Okay, so this sclerodendron or pagoda as it's called. It's a very popular nectaring plant. Okay, so other than host plants, we also have a third plant that is required for any good butterfly garden, This is a plant called Crotalaria retusa. Okay, the male members of the Danid family have to come here to collect their Viagra. They have to come and collect alkaloid pyrozoite from this plant, without which they can't get funny with the females.
We have various maybe flowering plants, some wild varieties are there, flowering plants which attract many birds. You might also see some sunbirds just sitting around there on the roof, just flew across.
Yeah, it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
I mean, every little thing that you see there is largely hand built by us. The journey has been full of ups and downs, as you said.
And it's very challenging to keep it up, yeah. I always feel both of us having similar interest is a rare combination, and I'm blessed to have that, because that's the way we have managed to keep this place up, because we have the same passion, the love for nature, love for butterflies, birds and reptiles, yeah, because there are plenty of reptiles. Even now, if they enter one of my neighborhood, he is the one who goes and rescues them. If you come and appreciate, yes, you please come enjoy the place, because we have really worked very hard, still working hard, and probably our future also is going to be a very tough one, but I think we will make it.
Yeah.
I wanted a small piece of land where my grandchildren would have every variety of plants which are available in Goa, and I think I have managed to do that over the years. They will definitely have a small piece of forest for them, so that keeps me motivating more than anything. Just keeping up the place for them. It's for my generations to come ahead.
Let's talk about your experience with the camera. First of all, before we talk about the experience, you as an engineer and as a technical mind, tell us the challenges of why we've probably not seen an affordable high-speed camera ever before, and what is the actual challenge in making a high-speed camera?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing that actually the market for high-speed cameras sort of has not really developed. You have these like very high-end offerings, and then you have the normal DSLR stuff with your 4K 120 or maybe 240 frames in full HD. But this has not really evolved since like maybe the Sony FS700 or so. And then, of course, you have the scientific cameras that can shoot super high frame rates, like 10,000 frames per second at reduced resolutions, of course, for scientific stuff. And these are also super expensive. And I think the major reason for that is, for one, the sensor technology, because you need, of course, very short readout speeds for high frame rates. And so far, we all know the rolling shutter issues of conventional CMOS sensors that read the sensor from the top to the bottom. And then you get like values of 7, 8, maybe 4 milliseconds. And then with 4 milliseconds, the maximum you can go is 250 frames per second, because once the second is full, so the 4 times 250 is a full second, so you cannot go below that. So for 2000 frames per second, you would need like a rolling shutter of 0.5 milliseconds. No? And that actually goes into global shutter territory. And I think this is what has changed now. We have seen the advent of global shutters with quite some manufacturers already. Sony, for instance, recently last year, released the Sony A9 III with their global shutter full frame sensor. And I think global shutter technology, where all the pixels are read out at once, enable now very fast readouts. And this is also what Pixboom is doing with their high-speed camera. They're using a backside illuminated global shutter sensor, and thus they can achieve very high frame rates.
It's actually ironic that the development of CMOS sensors, which mostly are rolling shutter sensors so far, has actually probably stalled the development of high-speed cameras.
Yeah, true.
Because, I mean, in the old days, we had CCD sensors,
true.
And that technology just kind of stalled for a very long time. Nothing because there were limitations around it. And now, as you said, like only the reintroduction kind of global shutter with CMOS sensors has re-enabled this development of high-speed cameras.
Yeah. And then, of course, the second thing is that the higher you go with your frame rate, the more light you need on the sensor, meaning either the shutter speed that goes to very low values. If you have like 1,000 frames per second, you need to go to a shutter of 1/2000 typically, or you have very high apertures on your lenses. But typically, for instance, if you talk about wildlife, you have like a f5.6 or f8. So you also need a very light sensitive sensor. And this is also why Pixboom has chosen the backside illuminated sensor, as it seems.
They claim that I think they say it's 4 times as light sensitive as the one of competitors like the Phantom Flex 4K, which, by the way, is interesting. The company behind the Phantom Flex 4K Vision Research, actually, this camera, the Phantom Flex 4K, is from 2013. And they've stopped development of cinema cameras. So they're very big. I mean, as the name says, Vision Research, they're really a scientific company. And they do these super high-speed cameras for scientific applications, but they've stopped in the movie industry. Probably didn't make sense anymore for them. And there was really this gap that, I mean, Free Flight tried to fill somewhat with the Ember, but that camera has kind of mixed reviews in terms of like what it can do for high speed.
Exactly.
So there really was this gap, or has been this gap until now.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And when my project in India came up, I wanted to film a documentary about butterflies and also damselflies. Damselflies are the smaller brothers of dragonflies, if you want, brothers and sisters. But I was worried because I knew I would need very high frame rates, because I did some tests at home with 4K 120, filming some butterflies on the normal surroundings. And I saw 120 frames is by far not enough to like really see what's going on with these animals. And so I reached out to you and Johnny and asked, do you have any camera, or is there any upcoming camera that can shoot higher frame rates than 4K 120? And then you said, yes, I think we can get you one.
Hopefully, yeah. And it worked thanks to these guys.
Out.
So how was working with the camera? We know, I mean, we have to really share that this was really a pre-production camera, and they kind of, like, were very generous to give us access to this camera, because we knew that this could not be a full review. It's by no means a finished camera. It's a very early firmware. A lot of the buttons still don't work. I think there was one record button that worked.
One record button somewhere at the bottom.
Somewhere at the bottom. But it at least was able to record. There's still no end trigger or mid-trigger or pre-recording available. So that's difficult, right?
That got me worried, actually, by the way, because I knew with the 2.5 terabyte module they can claim, like in 4K open gate 600 frames per second, you can shoot about 7 minutes of raw footage. But now, I mean, imagine that you have an animal or a bird or a butterfly sitting somewhere, and then you wait until it will move, and then you can very quickly fill up the card if there's no end trigger or pre-recording or whatever.
Honestly, I don't know. Let's look at some of the footage while we speak. And honestly, I don't know how you did it, because we had the camera for another 2 days after you came back. And I just tried something here in the studio. And I think within 2 or 3 hours, I easily filled up those 2.5 terabytes. Because in the end, at 1,000 frames, you said it's around 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So 7 minutes of footage on 2.5 terabytes.
Yeah. On the one hand, it sounds like a lot. Actually, not like a lot. 7 minutes is nothing. But actually consider that, like, for instance, at 480 frames per second, where I filmed the butterflies we're going to watch, that's already 20 times slow motion. So 1 second in real life equates to 20 seconds of footage.
But the problem here, if you don't have an end trigger or anything like that, is always that I find that you literally have the action. If the clip is like that long, you have like a tiny fraction where the action happens, and all the before and after is just you figuring out stuff. And just, you know, like even refocusing and
focusing and everything. And that got me very worried, because you brought the camera from IBC, like, was it a few hours before my flight to India? And I was like, should I take the risk to take it along? But I'm actually glad I did it.
How did it deal with the environment? I mean, you know, India is hot, it's humid.
No, actually, I was very surprised because the sensor never got hot. You have a very nice little display of the temperature of the sensor, and it always stayed at 42, like rock solid 42 Celsius. And you also have to keep one thing in mind. You have to keep the camera running because it has a very long boot up time. It takes about 25 seconds to boot up. And of course, if you see something happening in the wild, you cannot wait for like half a minute to get it boot up. So actually you have to keep it running. And under these hot conditions, I was worried it would overheat, but nothing like that happened in like 30-degree heat and direct sunshine and everything. And it's also not so power hungry. With a V-mount 99 watt accumulator, I was able to run it like for 2-3 hours, keep it running. And
I thought the same. I never changed the battery when I was using it here.
Yeah.
I was in general amazed how small the package is, because if you compare
like
this to
a little cube, like unbelievable.
If you compare this to a Phantom Flex 4K, it's a massive beast. And also the workflow, I think that's one of the things where we really have to applaud these guys. Is I think you will end up being able getting many more shots than with normal cameras. Yeah. 10 years ago or 11 years ago, I shot this documentary in South Africa with a crew around the Phantom Flex 4K. Yeah. And I remember they had a 1 terabyte module, or 2 of them actually. And the camera has a buffer. So you can always I think they had the smaller version. So it was like a 7-second buffer or something. Yeah. And as soon as the buffer was full, it needed to save. So you record it for 7 seconds with an end trigger, for example. Yeah. And then it would need to save these 7 seconds back onto the SSD. And while it was doing that, you could not record anything else. Okay. And that is really problematic if you're working with wildlife, because if something interesting happens in that time, you're screwed. And of course, there's then a version with was a second buffer or whatever. So you could do this, but it made the whole thing even more expensive. So in the end, you don't need this because there is no buffer on the Pixboom. You could record those 7 minutes or 20 minutes, depending on how many frames you use the camera for at once, which is amazing just to have this ability. And I think only people who knew how it worked with the existing high-speed cameras will appreciate how much easier this has gotten, especially when you're filming wildlife and you cannot control what's happening in front of you.
Exactly. No, it actually felt like a normal camera. I mean, you build it up, you bring it up with a viewfinder and stuff, and then you just shoot with it like a normal camera. And also the camera menu so far, very intuitive and everything. So I really enjoyed the experience. I really loved it because it makes things visible that you cannot see with your bare eye.
That's a very good point.
And that's amazing. I mean, that's really amazing.
For me, the experience is always, even here in the studio, like I was firing some, I don't know, confetti, whatever. And it's like, poof, it's done. Yeah. And then you watch it and it's like, it's like a
symphony.
Like a symphony. Yes, exactly. Didn't see any of that. That's amazing. And just, if you think about it, I mean, this camera now, I think it was originally the Kickstarter price was something like 8,000, and it went up to 9,000. And I think even when it's going to retail, it's going to be 14,000. Which is still, it's at a price range, I would say, that for a normal sized or bigger production, it's cheap enough to just bring it along. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just, you could just going to have it there for a commercial. Just to have the ability, even if you need it just for one shot on a shooting day, it will just be worth its money 10 times. Although, now that it's probably becoming ubiquitous, I'm sure this is not going to be the last camera.
Yeah, true.
At this price range, because
if you overuse it, again, it's not so cool anymore.
It's like what we had with sliders, then we had with drones, gimbals, everything, it's going to be, but still, at this moment in time, it's still kind of exciting everybody.
Exactly.
And I think it's going to be interesting, like for what people will use it for.
Yeah, true.
So, but one of the issues you saw also, and that again, we have to say, it's a pre-production unit. So for sure, this is something they're working on. They also told us they're working on this, but there was like a fine line you saw in the middle of the footage.
Yeah, actually, I mean, when you have watched the documentary, and probably some of you have seen it, so the way how this sensor is being read out, it first reads the upper half and then the lower half. Yeah, and that means there could be a slight non-uniformity in exposure, or in other words, the photoelectric response of the upper and lower part, and where the two match, you could see a slight difference in the exposure levels that sort of looks like a faint horizontal line. So that's a non-uniform photoelectric response. But we reached out to Pixboom and they said, no, they will fix it. It happens with every sensor, but normally you don't notice it so easily because every line that you read out also will have a slight different photoelectric response, but you can easier hide it, whereas upper and lower half. But they will look into the upstream quality of the sensors, but also downstream in the software, they will mitigate this issue. And I'm pretty sure they can do it because they've shown already what they are capable of doing. And I mean, it's a young team, and we had the interview with their CTO. I mean, amazing. These guys are delivering.
They're brilliant minds, honestly. And this, I mean, full disclosure, there is no whatsoever financial entanglement with these guys. We were just genuinely impressed with everything they do and the team. I mean, like you said, I mean, Johnny and I talked about this on one of the recent podcasts after IBC. We're just in general impressed by a lot of those young Chinese companies like Pixboom or Viltrox or some others.
They just go for it.
They go for it. They have such a young team of really smart engineers solving problems that nobody else has either managed to solve or wanted to solve. Like Viltrox with, in this autofocus adapter that makes every manual lens an autofocus lens, for example. And then Pixboom with this, I mean, it's just really tackling things that have been a problem and challenging the industry for many years, and they're just going for it. And I don't think anybody in the team looks older than 30. So it's incredible. It's really, really impressive.
Yeah. It's impressive.
And just one more thing about the image quality. What's also interesting to note, I think that the camera has like 4 or 5 ISOs, and we learned that all of them are supposedly native ISOs, so there is no difference in noise if you use them. I think it starts at 400, it goes up to 1600 ISO, and I thought it really helped me in here as well, because still, I mean, it's a high-speed camera, and compared to a normal camera, especially when you're indoors in a studio, you just need to blast it with light. But still, I mean, I was like at 800, and I only realized then, oh, wait a minute, I can actually increase the ISO. I don't have to bring everything up. And it worked. I mean, it's it's fine.
And what I also like about the image is basically Pixboom says there's no noise reduction on the sensor for now, and you can see there's a very fine and nice noise. And I hope they don't add noise reduction because raw footage, please keep it as it is. We also shot it quickly, talking about noise, shot quickly our Xyla 21 chart. I mean, it's a pre-production camera, so we did not run it through the full lab test and IMA test and everything.
Which all the results you see in the camera databases and in the lab test is always done with a unit of the camera that either has a production firmware or a firmware that the manufacturer says is final. It won't change. The result is important for us. We know that we're not always the fastest with delivering those results, but we want to be accurate because it doesn't make sense to
shoot preliminary conclusions or whatever. But basically we looked at it, and what you can see is basically that it has a 10-bit readout, the sensor, for now, according to Pixboom, and what you see is about 10 stops, 10, 11 stops maybe in the waveform, but like the 9th is already buried in the noise floor. That is also why you might think that it looks a little bit harsh or contrasty, the image. It is. You have to protect your highlights there because you have about 8, 9 stops across the range, the full range of the Luma code values, and that is also why it's like if you use a normal hybrid with a log format and then you add the contrast to expand it, and this is why it may look a little bit harsh sometimes, like shadows and lights, but I think it's still great what they did, and I think for the normal shooting scenario, especially on cloudy days anyway, but also in the sun, if you protect your highlights, you're fine.
Yeah, like I said to you before, I mean, to me, sometimes the footage, if it's not perfectly exposed, especially studio stuff, and you see it in very few of their own marketing material shots, it seems like footage from 10 years ago, where you have these
early days of contrasty,
low dynamic range kind of DSLR stuff. But that's not true if it's properly exposed. I mean, you won't see that. And it's still, I mean, any camera, to be fair, if you shoot higher frame rates, drops the quality, and even if you do this on a mirrorless camera, it has to kind of do, whether it's line skipping or something that will...
And also the bit depth. No?
Yeah.
A normal DSLR sensor is like maybe read out at 12 bit, but to be fast, the fast high frame rates, you have to read it at 10 bit, the sensor for now. And with 10 bits in RAW, what do you expect? There can't be more than like 10, 11 stops of dynamic range, which is fine for most scenarios. I mean, just be careful in exposure and you're good.
Did you have any issues when filming with any kind of light?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I've noticed is that probably you should shoot with an infrared cut filter on front of your lens. You can also see it on the sensor. It looks greenish. It doesn't have this like pinkish cyan look that you normally see on a hybrid camera sensor. So I'm guessing they have not included a very strong infrared cut filter. And because you need a lot of light, there's the risk of infrared pollution on this camera, I think.
So let's see if they will have one on the final production version.
Yeah. You can also shoot normal frame rates, like 24 frames, 25 frames, whatever you want. That's the one thing. But you can't really use it like a normal camera because it's very noisy. The fan, it has a fan to cool the sensor. As mentioned, it keeps the temperature very nice under control. But it is very loud, the fan, and maybe that's the reason why it has no audio input. So there's just no audio input on that camera. One thing. The other thing is you're very free to choose your resolutions and frame rates. The frame rate basically depends on the height of the sensor you choose. The more narrow you make the height of the sensor, the higher frame rates you can use, but you can still have the full width of the sensor. And of course, you can crop into the sensor for the higher frame rates. But yeah, so far so good.
But the cool thing is it is a 3x2 sensor, so you can even use anamorphic lenses.
Exactly. And it has even the squeeze options built in already. I mean, a high-speed camera with anamorphic squeeze.
We're still asking a lot of the camera manufacturers with cameras that are touted as cinema cameras to give us all the D-squeeze options in the camera.
Exactly.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah, and the other thing is what I at first didn't realize is I had the camera on a tripod, but a high-speed camera at the high frame rates, you can use it handheld. Nobody will notice. I mean,
very true. You can not even shake it enough to...
Think about it. I mean, everything is 25 times slower or 40 times or whatever your ratio is. And you will not notice any shake, and it's a global shutter sensor. So anyway.
And the form factor of this camera.
And the frame rates are high. So
the shutter is high. The form factor that makes it unique. You know, it's like a small camera. You can shoot stuff that so far probably nobody has shot with a high-speed camera because it's just so versatile.
Yeah. And that's also what I did. I took it from the tripod and then just used it handheld on the floor or whatever, on the ground.
Also the fact that you have an interchangeable mount. I mean, we have the E-mount version.
The E-mount version,
and it's fine. You just use any of the Sony lenses or Sony compatible lenses, and you can control the aperture. Of course, there's no autofocus.
We also used the Metabones for EF lenses. I was using the Canon EF lenses. I was able to change the aperture with the adapter, so all fine.
I think the killer feature would be, I don't know, I don't think they have mentioned it, but to have a super fast autofocus.
That would be killer feature because a focus pull like you do in real life that takes half a second would take like 20 seconds in
So like this super fast refocusing mode you have on a Sony camera that's just for photographers would be perfect for high-speed cinematography because you just need it to be on point. If you had a iris tracking or this
on the birds or whatever, that would be amazing because I mean you can see it also in the footage that I shot. That basically, especially with I shot this with a 400mm lens, so it equates to 600 because it's an APS-C sensor, and on a 600mm lens, if you get close to a small butterfly, like the area where your image is sharp or the depth of focus is like millimeters only, and once it moves a tiny bit away, you're out of focus and you have no way to control it. I mean,
especially with a photo lens, like without proper gears and everything.
Especially, but I mean, at the high frame rates, I want to see a focus puller.
Yeah, that's true.
I pull this off. But,
somebody running at your camera at 200mm f2, right? And then try to pull
it focus at 1,000 frames per second.
Exactly. That's going to be interesting. Yeah. So I mean, just an exciting camera. We're very much looking forward to also testing the production version once it's out. In any case, just an amazing achievement. We can confirm it's not vaporware. It's an actual camera. It produces very beautiful images, and let's see what that means for cinematography over the next couple of years, because I think I think high speed and slow motion is going to be super slow motion. Is going to be very widespread.
You know, you're freezing time in a way.
Yeah.
And that's huge. I mean,
yeah.
But it's not a photograph, you know. So
no, it's a moving photograph.
Yeah.
It's a moving
really special.
Yeah. Thank you, Gunther.
Thank you.
And yeah, see you guys on more reviews like this one. Also follow us on YouTube and also check out our podcast where we always talk about the latest of the week, what's happened in gear news and beyond. And yeah, see you on the next one. Bye.